Okay, we're going to start with a nice inhale, exhale, drawing up life force from the core of the earth, and just allow it to span round through your energy system. Lots of green emerald energy coming up here. We just want to recirculate the life force back through the energy system. Nice and slow, inhale, exhale. Allowing the earth to create support through the roots. And just start to energize with liquid emerald light rays coming up into the roots of your tree, roots of the tree of life. Inhale, exhale, opening out through the solar plexus, expanding through the solar core, and interfacing opalescent light ray with the solar plexus. And as we expand out the solar plex, we're just going to open out your field and just begin to interface auroric crystalline opal light plasma coming from the Aquari matrix interconnecting into your energy system, building an opal staircase da aquí a Mosmona Okura, to connect into the higher heavens. And as we move up into the higher heavens, we've got light recirculating back down with equation key codes from the God world's higher Akasha templates interconnecting with the body. We're just going to sit and allow these equation mathematic codes coming in. Nice slow inhale. With the invitation to surrender into the tightness, knowing that we are completely safe, completely secure, to unlock the fear which reformats the base light structure. As well as interfacing with the solar dragons of the higher heavens. Solar dragons coming in, expanding vertically and horizontally. Stonehenge as grid location opening. The solstice key codes echoing through time, space, interfacing to the Aton body. Harmonic illumination, sound waves of the 24th field reverberates down through the sound tones of the higher heavens. Building a pathway of solstice to equinox precession. Developmental architecture to expand the channels expand the awareness and expand the historic timelines, templates to inhibit higher heaven communication, assistance within purifying and clearing the timeline that we're going to see moving through the Lion's Gate. So we can see this as a pre-healing for the Lion's Gate before it opens on the 26th and runs through to about the 23rd, 24th of August, 26th of July, 24th of August. Surrendering and opening. Signet light rays expanding through the Hova body. Backside of the heart, backside of the throat, moving into expansion, soul matrix opening, soul wounds, lacerations of the soul template, move to recode with the Christ, deep-seated grief unlocking embedded through the heart, and the emerald ray interfacing back into and through the heart field, solar plexus unlocking and opening, restricted expression moves into illumination, right side body expanding and opening, feeling of nauseousness and wanting to be sick is coming up here. The kind of sick with worry or sick with anxiety kind of expression where the soul doesn't feel comfortable in the form and the body doesn't feel comfortable in the world, and the personality and soul are mismatched identities that don't necessarily hold coherence, allowing the personality false identities to melt away in this moment. Separation releasing, living by the false truth. Na okia kriya masmana okora. And just allowing this distortion, this false identity, wound, laceration, just to rise to the surface here. We're just going to connect with it with love and acceptance. Ultimately, the false identity is created upon trauma, which sits as a third dimensional representation, whereas the true identity would kind of begin at the soul. And as we kind of adjust to this understanding, we're then allowing the artificial timelines, artificial implants of consciousness that are connected to the memories tied into the creation of the false identity, just begin to melt away in the central point of Stonehenge. And updating the information through the 11th Stargate. Lower three chakras, root, sacral, solar, personality matrix begins to update. High levels of fear unlocking through the root as we begin to release and let go of the attachments held to the false identity and to the artificial timeline overlays to our organic timeline system that keep us bound by distorted beliefs generated from traumatic experiences. Okay. Let's go ahead and do a nice big inhale, exhale. Hold the inhale for about 4 or 5 seconds. Allow the consciousness to drop into the body deeper, so you're focusing your breath through the root sacral solar. Allowing the emotional charge to move through you. Affirming, I am claiming my body, I am expanding my light, I am claiming my right to be on the earth. The soul integrates further into the physical form. Merkabic fields begin to spin and open, balancing the ratios and proportions of the Merkaba. Light body updating, divine blueprint updating, accommodating the higher light synthesis of the higher heavens to interface into the 12-strand DNA template, updating the system to a 24-strand DNA template, double diamond sun. Harmonic light tones and sounds sing through the backgrounds as we enter into the Christ Cathedral, blue ray cathedral consciousness, emerging with emerald light rays coming through, connecting with the mother consciousness family. Refilling the layers of separation with mother's love, the love of the emerald. Activating Cathar codes, Dayamos Mana Okura, realigning the Cathar of the Albion light body with the Albion, so the feminine component to the masculine component. Allowing the separation wounds to lift. Pain stored through the womb quadrant of the divine feminine body. Feeling the imprints of anger, frustration, rage, the imprints of separation interlocked through the false identity as it's moving up to the surface. Letting go of the rage, the anger, where boundaries have been crossed. Got loads of lower back pain just coming up here. So we're all looking around the lower second, third, fourth lumbar in the lower spine here. We're just going to run some gold down into that lower spine and allow this to decompress. We're just going to bring in the energy of acceptance for that pain, acceptance for the separation. And it's like the repressed repressed anger, repressed um, not being able to express when somebody's overstepped a boundary and kind of shutting down in the process, which creates a level of dissociation and also creates a disconnect from self-expression or the soul expression, plus a level of personal self-betrayal for not standing up and speaking out. Allow it to be heard here. Breathing deep down into the lower back once again. Bringing the consciousness down. Bringing the aurora in just to support the system with auroric liquid plasma to elevate the consciousness in those moments. Okay, just accepting, allowing this to move up, feeling it through is quite uncomfortable, quite painful, but knowing that we are safe in the present moment, knowing that we are safe, even if it feels uncomfortable, it doesn't mean it's going to last very long. Even if it is there and present, it just means we're just working through something that hasn't yet been addressed in one's own field. No, yukarıya na aşmana okura, şu yukarıya da asna akiyen. Okay. Allowing this to open, central nervous system moving into illumination, coccygeal plexus, coccygeal nerve plexus illuminating, and there's kind of sets of or fragments of implants just sat down the lower spine quadrant that's interfacing with the cerebral spinal fluid there. This can be seen on, okay, so this is connected to multiple people in the group right now, but it's also connected into what looks like the spine of the Albion as a kind of implant distortion sequence that's running through the Albion backbone, which is then relaying interference back through the central nervous system of the planet whilst running a distortion into the kind of the planetary brain's hardware, I suppose, or the planetary brain's kind of networking system or neural pathways, let's say. Okay, let's run light into that. Opalescent liquid light. Just feeling these begin to pop out now, and the pressure over the high heart, pressure over the heart, and the solar plexus begins to loosen. Which then in turn begins the rehabilitation process through the heart mind coherence on a personal level, but also into the nadial system, which is the central nervous system blueprint, which is then relaying information back into the planetary chakras, the personal chakras, and then that would run into the subatomic ranges. So we'll just reassess the situation here. Let's just run light through that as we kind of know where it's pinpointing into now. Allowing the anxiety to fade out, allowing the burning or the frying sensation of the central nervous system to soften, as the liquid light templates begin to repair the the central nervous system, which is then in turn coming back up to the heart and correcting the nadial pathways around the heart chakra and the high heart chakra, the thymus, running down the arms, bringing the arms into a real soft jelly-like expression, very peaceful, allowing the artificial networks just to detach or dissolve, departicularize, and chill out. Maya kuriyamas manano ohura shaya kuriyana akian. Sanaya kuriyana yakia ta ashna akia. Okay. Lower back opening, root field expanding, dark, smoky light lifting from the base of the root field here. And then we've got the dark smoky light clearing out, and then ruby crystal tones moving in, addressing the fragmentation of the root. Correcting the vertical axis, and then relaying that ruby crystalline spiral up to the higher heavens, spiralizing the field and connecting in to the source core. I kind of feel like I just want to melt into this for a moment because it feels so good. It feels so blissful and so welcoming with this pure source light moving back into all of the layers of the fragments within the root field. Where all of the artificial components just quite literally melt away. And then everything, the whole space around becomes very expansive. Let the bliss, charged love, let the peace interface with the root from where we've been running on survival, fight, flight, and freeze to the most of it. We want to have this just completely immerse that sensation, moving through polarity integration. Allowing the architecture of the light body to update, the architecture of the planetary field and the solar system to update. The fourth stargates on the planet, in the solar system and the universe, just to correct with the frequency here. Back to its original divine plan, divine standpoint, or as much as it can go to with each individual involved. Yama dobayasna shniya kriyana sana akya kriyana yokora. Suyokora smana atia tarashna snayan tayan dayask. So as this is updating, as the fields are updating themselves now, we're just being taken back up through the fountain and connecting up back into the higher heavens. And back up into the God worlds. What we're seeing is a redistribution of the heart consciousness updating, but I'm also simultaneously being taken to the 10th Stargate, to the Hatshepsut Trinity Gate, that runs the corrections on the 10th dimensional level. We've also got the corrections running through the 7th dimensional level, and again, touching base into the 4th. Okay. So with the code corrections and the updates in the God worlds, we're just going to bring this back down into the 4th. We're going to update it into the 7th and then the 10th, connecting into the Hatshepsut gate of the 10th Trinity gate, running along the horizontal ley lines of the planet. Once again, correcting and feeling the bliss-charged love expanding. As organic light consciousness reclaims the territory much more further. Crown chakra begins to open and unlock. Tightness through the trigeminal jawline, the teeth. Expansion through the heart, softening through the chest, solar plex, and across the third eye. Awakening the multi-layered cosmic egg, dragon eggs, dragon lines, and then the expansion of the lays, or the ley lines. Subsequently, with the softening of the planetary field and of the personal body, with the release of the artificial intelligence systems, the central nervous system becomes a lot easier to soften here, which is allowing the sentient field to move through more organically without having to be in threat. The third eye is then enabled to kind of open more peacefully instead of in danger, where it kind of just gives you flickers or flashes of information. We're now moving into a fuller expression of the landscape, and we're actually touching base now into multiple layers of holographic architecture and holographic key codes and activations coming in. So one of them is a blue, green, emerald turtle. And then that's connecting into the emotional body, liquid light seas of consciousness. So we just allow that to open and expand. The next layer around that holographic overlay is crystalline cathedral architecture interfacing with the liquid light sea and the blue emerald turtle codes. That would relay into past life, Lemurian epoch kind of memory sequencing and consciousness, but also the bliss charges that come from it expand into the liquid crystal light sea, which then begins to repair the fractures within the architecture and the cathedrals, and thus into one's own memories, into one's own childhood, into one's own past lives, interdimensional lives, etc., reformatting the base of the field. Okay. So with the updates that are occurring here, we're now also getting a projection back through the timeline to the equinox. So through the Lionsgate, where we're opening the pathways, allowing the light to pre-align the light codes into the body or into the light body and to interface it more comfortably. Because the past few years have been quite uncomfortable, to say the least. And this is then phasing up through the equinox into the shadow, where we move into the descent back into the winter solstice, where we've got a deeper cleaning out of the shadow body, the shadow layers, the shadow masculine and feminine. But here we've got the Holy Father, the Amethyst Order, and the Cetacean dolphin, whales, Pegasi layers connecting in just to inlay pre I'm going to say like pre-architect the masculine body and the shadow form for when we align into that. Ama asmana o koria shanaya prachanaya. Immediate relief. Okay. Solar rays, ring of fire, Mount Kailash, Shambhala sound tones, vertical alignment, backside solar plexus updating, flushing false light architecture, false light inversions from the backside of the solar plex, top tier level of ego matrix or personality matrix, da Akya Masmana Okwara. Okay, so we just have to sit with this one for a little bit as we connect into this inversion. We're just going to go in with acceptance here. And what's kind of triggering up through that would be kind of, it doesn't feel like a full narcissistic template, but it feels like layers of a narcissistic template that's kind of becoming active as the false light system linked to the back of the solar plex, which is kind of engaging with a kind of let's see. There's different ways we could describe this. One of them would be like a kind of a spiritual ego identity or kind of it, I mean, it doesn't just have to sit with that, but it's one who sees himself as above another and then filters feeds themselves kind of like lies and distortions within that as well, that the personality would believe, thinking that they were coming from Akiyama Mana Okura, from the higher realms, when yeah, it's fundamentally not really. It's just kind of it's a layer within the fourth and fifth dimensional field that's interfaced with the backside of the solar plex as a kind of grandiose sense of self, that Yamas Mana Okura. And this would heavily link into the 10th dimensional field because that is kind of overrun with draconic energy. And then that would then interplay within the hybrid DNA that interconnects at the subatomic level, or the 1D level, that Miyakudijana Akuya. It goes through multiple levels actually, now that I see it. So raising it to the awareness first is key. Just got a bit of tightness and pain coming up over the left side shoulder. Self-denial. Coming into acceptance. I'm sure all of us, including myself, have gone through this level of grandiosity. I know that I did through drug addiction years. We want to just completely honor and respect it and not fight it. In order to integrate the meaning, because ultimately, as we go into this, it's operating from fear and a need to be loved, a need to be adored, a need to be wanted, which subsequently comes into childhood traumas where needs weren't met. There's a myriad of different things as to how this is operating here. And we just want to accept it all. Accept it, love it, honor it. And then we can see where ego reflections come back to us through our physical reality, and in turn, our own shadow then also represents that as that comes back when it becomes triggered. Acceptance is key. And gratitude for it being raised to the surface in order to rehabilitate the consciousness at a much more deeper level, in order to align bliss, align joy, align everything that we are looking for in our lives, but somehow struggle to find on a day-to-day basis. If we're running with depression, or if we're running with like a backlog of anger, or even if we believe that the world owes us something. No, it's just about kind of seeing it for what it is and accepting it for how it is, and accepting the things we can't change about them, which allows us to move forwards within all of that. Okay, this is then starting to allow the grief of the truth to come to the surface, or the truth triggering the grief to come to the surface, that's landlocked through the third eye, held in resistance because it doesn't want to kind of admit layers of these kind of shadow personalities. And doesn't want to look deeply at the past either, which is, I mean, if you've gone through trauma, nobody really does want to look at that. But in order for us to really move into empowerment, we have to look at it, love it, integrate it, understand it, know that you are not it, and you are always consistently moving through evolutionary cycles which never stop. So how can you be the same person you were 10 years ago, which makes no sense? correct the belief systems behind it. And recognize these layers also as hybrid consciousness, as kind of indigo type 3 consciousness, where we're dealing with high polarity integration. Flashing with encryption through the 10th gate, through the 10th Trinity, through the 7th and the 4th, actually, and running horizontally across the planet, interfacing with the vertical lines and the diagonal lines as well, connecting through the parallel stargates into the Akusha matrix, updating through the Akusha, heading back up through the Vecca quadrant into the central Eka point, and reverberating at the central sphere of the Eka, which is revealing the Ascended Master capstone codes. Allowing the capstone codes to update the field, update your light bodies. Which is gradually phasing away. The fallen consciousness, or upfolding the fallen consciousness into a level of awareness where it's able to move back into bioregenesis alignment. Solar plexus updating. In fact, the whole chakra system updating the Amos Mana Okura. Claiming back your body, claiming back your life force, claiming back your right to be in form. And then we're going to expand that out through, expand your light back out through the through the negative grids, through the AI grids, and also through the artificial implant systems. We're just popping those out simultaneously. They interlock and connect into the narcissistic template layers and reversal personality distortions, as well as these simultaneously melt away fundamentally. Okay, that feels like we've hit a really good place there. The whole body feels very light, feels very expansive. We're going to update through all fields. We're going to update through all localized grids. I'm going to thank you all so much for joining today. I'm going to pause the recording now. Loads of love.